Kyle, I don't know if you've noticed this, but September 11th is only 3 days away from September 8th. And September 11th is the first day of ASOTUCon. We're counting down the hours at this point.
I go, the people really want to know who I is and who I be. They stop and stay with
That's kind of my mode. I kind of every hour I go
like someone just played a great guitar riff or something, you know, like why is the response when a great musician does something or someone just plays, like just pulls off something nasty, you laugh in your face, you get a little stank face. Why is that the reaction? I don't know. We hope that reaction, people have that a lot at ASOTUCon as the people are going to be on stage, like just dropping what they're going to drop. And I know it. People are going to be like, maybe we should give some white hankies. Ooh, right?
Yeah, and then just have
a little church.
Just go to church a little bit. I love it. You know what's crazy? So we've done some live shows at like outside of our office before. We've sat at VADA and that type of stuff. This will be the first time in 4 days time that you and I will sit on a stage and let people kind of peek into the BTS, the behind the scenes of the
we've never done that before. I wonder how that's going to go. I mean, if you're listening, if you're going to be at ASOTUCon, we are doing the Automotive Troublemaker every morning from the main stage. That may just be Kyle and I in a big empty room doing it.
Everybody's
but we'll just keep the camera shots tight. We'll put in some B-roll of some very interested crowd, right? Yes. You know what I mean? We should. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do. But either way, there's still time. If you're a dealer and you want to go to ASOTUCon, you can still get tickets at ASOTUCon.com. If you're like within an hour or 2 hours of driving distance, you really should just be there. Just trust us. If you're listening to this show, and you know a dealer who is in that area who should be there, everyone's got 20 groups and dealer networks, right? You don't even have to be in the same state, but if you know people that are in that area, let them know what's going on, because that's part of the cool thing about bringing a national level auto conference and a national level speaking roster to a new city. I can't think of one auto event that's been in Philly that's been that national level. Can you? Can't think of one.
I won. ISG 20 was there a couple years ago.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So, okay, we can think of one.
There we go. We got one.
Only one, but only one. And also, we've never, ever in the industry seen an event that opened its doors to everyone in the industry from the top to the bottom, rank and file. I don't care if you just got hired.
Almost 2,000 people there on Monday night.
There's still a few days, and there's still that whole thing that's going to happen, like where people are sharing with their friends, right? That all happens last minute. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to this thing. Oh, that exists. My wife last night was like, what are you even doing again? I was like, yeah, there's gonna be like a couple thousand people there, you know, and she was and she was like, oh man, that's right down your alley. I was like, yeah, kind of is. We're gonna whisk out of the VIP dinner over to go up on stage and try to get some more people fired up about being in the industry that they're in, because that is one of our missions at ASOTU, draw a big circle around everyone in the industry, because the more people in the industry that are paying attention, I don't care if you're a lot porter, BDC rep, receptionist, service advisor, IT, whatever, the more people that are paying attention to what's going on in the industry, the faster innovation is going to go, and the more we can get the great things that dealers are doing out into the open and out into the wild. So
yes,
that's why we're doing what we do it. And rant.
Go. Oh, hey, look, real quick. If you've been paying attention to Auto Collabs, the Dan Moore episode is out live on podcast platforms. It's also going to drop live at noon from a video podcast perspective. That conversation, so good. It's just
one of my favorite intros ever.
Yeah, the intro is
when Dan comes
so much fun. Yeah, like it's just a good one. You're gonna wanna listen to it if you're going about your day today and a podcast listener for sure.
No doubt. Stick with it through the middle and the end, because it's one of those conversations that gets like deeper, more and more substantial as the conversation goes on. We had to cut it off at like 25 minutes just because everyone doesn't have all day. Walking the dog doesn't take that long. Dan will be at ASOTUCon too, so it'll be a great way to follow up on the conversation. Speaking of following up,
segue
time. All right, today. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? We actually have a special guest today.
Wow!
We just spent like 10 minutes talking with him backstage. We have a special guest coming up in just a moment. Jamie Oldershaw, GM at DealerRater, VP of Reputation Strategy at Cars, is going to come and share some very Switzerland-like data on customer sentiment toward dealers.
It's a great way of putting it. It's a great way of putting it.
I think that should be his job
Switzerland-like
title.
data. Yeah.
Provider of Switzerland-like data on customer sentiment toward auto dealers.
Love it.
Esquire. I don't know. Okay, so first story today. Speaking of following up, how will the reputation of primary care services in the U.S. change as a result of these well-known new entrants to the game? This is a key question following CVS's recent announcement of their definitive agreement to acquire Signify Health in an all-cash deal valued at about $8 billion. Now, Signify, $8 billion.
He said billion.
Signify. So basically what they do is they use proprietary technology analytics to support doctors, nurse practitioners, and physicians assistants who make house calls. Let's get back to some house calls to over 2.5 million patients across all 50 states. And here's the kicker. Signify says that when primary care is delivered this way, care providers spend 2.5 times more time with the patient.
You got to think that that's a good thing, right? Like,
I don't know. Have you ever had a primary care experience, Kyle?
Primary care, like you mean like a primary? I mean, I've been to primary care doctor, but you mean like
and how much? No, I meant that. And how much time do you feel like the doctor really spends with you? Not just in physical time, but actually like mental time. They walk in. All right, okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like the 2.5 more times seems like a good thing to me, because when I visited a doctor, I'm like, okay, you just looked at my tongue and diagnosed my toe somehow in the last 33 seconds, right? It's like,
walk in and go something like this, right? They walk in, got the clipboard thing, and they're like, all right, and they get the sound.
Yep. And then it's like, all right, so tell me a little bit about what's going on. Okay.
Take these.
I got
pills.
a prescription for you.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So obviously we are going grossly high level on this, but I think I searched on this, right? Because it's so applicable to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is consumer perception of the automotive industry.
Exactly.
I could not find a single score, metric, overarching figure on customer satisfaction or patient satisfaction with primary care. Everything was some like way over my head study, doctorate level published document that is like, I don't have 6 years to read this. And like, no one was like, it's actually 3 stars on average, or it's actually this. And I would bet
That's interesting,
that if you got some honest reviews on the entire primary care experience, they'd be pretty low.
Yeah. It's like long wait times,
crappy scheduling systems, right? Like calling, like the whole situation, dealing with
Jamie's in the background. He's actually on the thing right now. He's like,
physicianrater.com. Yeah. Primary care rater. No, because I couldn't find a single thing. And I was like, I wonder if it has something to do with the fact that it's healthcare. And if people feel better, right, you kind of like forget the rest of the experience, or you just accept it as a terrible experience. So it doesn't take that much to just like,
maybe people love I don't know. Maybe people
that's
maybe
not
as a
true.
General whole love it. I don't
not
know.
true. Not true at all. There's
not
no way
true.
that's true. I bet there are some that have gotten it right. Like the troublemakers in primary care who got the scheduling component down and they have the experience component down. Right. But the whole process is terrible, right? First of all, you start off sick. It's almost like a service experience.
I'll tell you this, primary care could learn a lot from dentists. Dentists have scheduling, timing, attention, bedside man. They got it all down.
Has the best sales funnel I've ever seen in my life.
Ever. And their customer retention capacity is out of this world. It's like every industry needs to be like, what are dentists doing?
I know, but I don't like being sold on my health. Well, your tooth could be fine, or it could rot out of your face. I mean, let's get that enamel coating, should we? Right.
There we go.
And but all that to say, like the rivals, CVS's rivals like Walgreens, Walmart, Amazon, everybody, there's a big push into primary care, and there's a big push into personalization, access to telemedicine. And I think like the scheduling of it, the payment of it, right? Insurance is a nightmare to navigate. It'll be interesting to see how this starts to translate into maybe some actionable patient reviews, because I feel like people are going to be much more willing to rate CVS than they are, family practice associates LLP.
Well, yeah, and not just that, but like
It's in the hospital.
whenever you have like this obviously comes with an app-based system. So you've got to look at retention, you've got to look at things like customer sentiment. And so whenever you're doing virtual visits, right, or in-person visits, you start to widen the capacity for technology to be involved. And I think that it's prime for just figuring out, hey, what's the best way that the primary care industry can service customers. So speaking of the best way an industry can care for customers,
stop. Segue.
Time.
All right, bring him in, Isaac.
Come on. There he comes. There's Jamie. He's already smiling. We got him laughing. So that's good.
I just found that I was just kind of checking this out. DealerRater is available. So
what you mean? It was available 5 minutes ago, is what you mean?
Well, yeah, I just got it. So
yeah, if you haven't secured that on GoDaddy, just know like we get 10% of what the company whenever it starts. Yeah. All right,
Kyle's pumping the overlap agreement already.
Rest of my day right there. So thank you.
That's great. That's great. Well, hey, so we a couple weeks ago, and just to set the stage here, a couple weeks ago, and really for the past couple months, we've been talking about the story around the FTC and the comment section that they've allowed on these FTC guidelines. And we've just been kind of, talking to dealers, talking to industry partners through Auto Collabs, through some of the content that we've been putting out about, what the overall sentiment, what actually is going on in the industry. Like, are the things that the FTC is bringing to the table actually going to help solve for a better customer experience, or are they going to inhibit that? And even more, our question has been, Paul and my question has been, hey, is it really in need of like an overhaul and in fixing? And we know that there are segments of our industry that are in need of overhaul. And yes, we continually have to push the boundaries of customer experience. But one of our questions has kind of been like, hey, what do customers really think about their sales and service experience? Like, what's the real sentiment? Is the net promoter score of our industry as a whole like positive or poor? Right. And so friend of mine, Jamie Oldershaw, the GM of DealerRater and VP of Reputation Strategy at Cars, is now here with us. He's sitting right below Paul and I. If you're watching on video and if you're listening, he's joined us. And I asked him to kind of come on. I've asked you, Jamie, to kind of come on and give us a little bit of overview, because DealerRater, how many reviews are you up to as a platform at this point?
Oh gosh, so as a platform on DealerRater, we're up to just under 9 million. And if you kind of zoom out and look at Cars Inc., which is DealerRater and Cars, it's about 11.5 million reviews. And so just to maybe, back up for a sec, it's just kind of a quick disclaimer and context. I've read all the same articles you guys have read. And I mean, look, no industry, no business is perfect. Automotive is certainly no exception. Kyle, as you just mentioned, there are pockets of areas where dealers need to improve. There are, bad actors. There are things that we certainly need to focus on and fix as an industry. DealerRater's been around since 2002. That's when we collected our first consumer review. So we're about 20 years into this. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we are an open, transparent platform. We started collecting reviews before Yelp was even a company, before Google had any reviews.
What does open and transparent platform mean? Explain that for us.
So we have all the dealerships across the country, new and used, represented on the site. So any consumer who has had a dealership experience is free to come to the site, share their experience, and have that out and available for any customers who come, any shoppers who come to our site to do dealership research can read all those reviews. So there's
that is unfiltered reviews. There's no combing. There's no dealers paying to get bad reviews removed. Any of that, right?
Absolutely not. And it's been very important to us since day one. Content moderation is important, so we want to make sure that we can filter out the fraud. And certainly there's been a fair share of fraudulent reviews, over the years. Consumers who didn't have an experience there but had a grudge, or dealership employees writing reviews. We've seen it all, right? But we take a lot of pride in the fact that we have very strict content moderation. We have community guidelines. So there's certain things that you can't write about, just because, obviously it's, and these are things that are sort of specific across all review platforms, referencing crime or other things like that. But so we have an open platform, so anyone can share their experience. It's very important to us because we want to make sure that dealers can leverage our platform to get better, right? And I think our mission from day one has been to improve the automotive retail experience for buyers and sellers, right? And we take a lot of pride in the fact that we are the definitive voice of the customer for automotive, and that's what we want to continue to provide innovations on. We can also rate the specific employee at the dealership that you did business with. So it's not just the dealership, but it's also the person. Who do I ask for when I go to the dealership? Which is something that only we do on our platform. So we are deep in automotive. We're not collecting reviews on hotels or restaurants or salons. We are specialists in automotive. That's all.
Or doctors, right?
Yet.
Oh, that could change after today, but all joking aside, we've collected a lot of content. So if you just sort of zoom out and look at just over the past 10 years, right, 8 million reviews across 30,000 dealerships in the U.S.
Wow,
94% positive feedback from consumers. So only 6% negative. So again, that's a lot of content across a lot of dealerships, and 94% positive. And you sort of take one sort of step further into that. Service lane feedback is about 91% positive. Sales use is about 92.5, and sales new is 96. The average is about 94.
So that's a great point, because especially when we think about like franchise dealers and the FTC, and I do want to be clear, like Paul and I are not asking you, Jamie, and for the listening audience, we're not asking Jamie to kind of comment on whether or not the guidelines of the FTC are right. But a lot of the conversation around these FTC guidelines has been about the overall customer experience, transparency, honesty of the dealer, all of that type of stuff. And so the sentiment of the dealer has an important part to play in how our culture and the government perceive the retail auto dealer. So for me, seeing that, interesting, it's kind of wild to me. Like, I would have probably flipped all those numbers if you would have just asked me, like, where's the average around 94%? I probably would have flipped that, seeing like new car purchasing being the lowest overall sentiment. But what you're saying is that new car purchases are expressing the highest overall sentiment for dealers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, people walk out of the dealership generally very happy with their new car, and they want to share that experience. Now, we also get our fair share of customers who aren't happy, who drive off the lot, sure, something's wrong, and the dealer.
6% of 8 million is a lot.
A lot, right? That's still, that's 500,000 people over the past 10 years who came to DealerRater and said something went wrong and I'm not happy. Now, I'm sure that many of those negative experiences have turned positive in the meantime. And I think, again, we'll talk a little bit about sort of the hallmark of a good dealer, someone who sort of takes that feedback and uses it to actually change processes. But yeah, I mean, it's still a fair share of customers who have walked off the lot not happy with what they just experienced. And I think the more we can sort of encourage dealers and train the industry to sort of leverage feedback as a gift and use it to change their processes, train employees, just do things differently. Those are other dealers that ultimately win in their marketplace, and the dealers that we want to reward on our platform to make sure that we're giving them the lion's share of the leads on cars.com and others. So.
Well, and I love the way you position that, because whether you're getting reviews on Google or DealerRater or Facebook or any review platform that's out there, or you're reading these 7,761 comments on the FTC guidelines, wherever you're at, if you're a dealer or industry partner, taking that and learning from the comments that are being made, especially the ones that have some sort of negative sentiment, whether it's of your dealership or of another dealership or of dealerships as a whole, is an important, I used to always say, like, I loved the bad reviews as a marketer and as a business development person on the retail side. was because that's the time where we got to spring into action and either make things right or fix a process that was clearly broken. Because if it broke for one person, then it probably broke for more.
Yeah,
and
10 others that never left a review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so those are the golden opportunities that we have right now as an industry to kind of look at and zero in on.
Yeah. And I think you'd be surprised at the number of dealers that still don't read their reviews on a regular basis. Right. And
I don't think so. I don't think we'd be surprised.
Yeah. Because I think,
But many might be. I don't think we would be.
Yeah. I mean, it's if you're not, it's a missed opportunity. And I
Big
think
time.
if you want to know where to focus, I mean, we tell dealers, just Google your dealership name and see what shows up on the first page of search engine results. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be Google, Cars.com, DealerRater, and Facebook. And just pay attention to those sites. And most importantly, you got to respond to these reviews too. It's an open door to provide great SEO value for your dealership, to have that conversation so it's not a one-sided conversation. And it's free to respond on all these platforms, DealerRater and Cars. You don't need to, pay us a dime to respond to your customer and engage with them, particularly if it's a negative review. And again, not a lot of dealers, on our platform, only 40% of dealers are actively responding to reviews. That's not enough. And when you look at dealers, when we look at dealers who are perennial Dealer of the Year award winners on our platform, 80% of those are responding. So if you sort of talk about like the healthy habits of a dealer that's providing a good experience and gets rewarded for it by being scored highly on our platform and others, they're not only reading reviews, they're actively responding, and they're
they're engaging with their customer base?
I know it's
it's
crazy
have a better customer experience.
Well, here's the thing.
Sort of
This morning, we all know this FTC proposed legislation. Commenting on this proposal is closing in 4 days. It's actually closing on September 12th, first day of a full day of ASOTUCon. I checked in with the site this morning, and there are currently 7,700 plus reviews on the site. I actually grabbed the top 4, right? They're in chronological order. So most recent first. And I was like, well, let me check in and see what people are saying. Actually, the top 4 were more substantive than ones I had seen in the past that had only been like a line or two. And so I'm going to read a couple of them now. And then we're also going to make sure that you have the link, everyone listening. And we have some suggestions on how to weigh in on the FTC. We'll probably make a separate post about this, but all the links are in the show notes, so you can go right to the proposal and the comment section. But we'll talk about a couple of these comments for a second. So here's the first one from an anonymous commenter. By the way, our first suggestion is don't be an anonymous commenter because they get discounted. So here we go. We have too many forms as it is. My goal always is to make the purchase experience as easy and uncomplicated as possible for my customers. Obviously, this is an anonymous dealer. We are a franchise dealership in a small town, and repeat customers are a large part of our business. More forms and complicating the process will simply make things worse for the customer. The customer's interests are protected by truth in lending, buyer's guides, privacy rights, credit disclosures, approval declination letters, etc. Any issue seemingly addressed in the above regulation is already covered, established, and in place. So obviously a very clear,
such an astute comment. You could literally take that, copy it out of our show notes, edit a few things, put your name on it, and probably I'm just saying that is astute. That is dialed in.
I wouldn't approach it that way. I mean, I wouldn't quite approach it that way. Because what I'm just like, put your empathy hat on, and like, how's a consumer frustrated with the process going to read that? I'm a dealer and don't change anything because you're already fine. So shut up. Right?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, if I'm the customer, and I have a qualm or I have a stigma in my mind already, like, of course you're going to say that. So they're just making this proposal up because nothing's wrong and everything's fine. Right. Okay. The very next comment. This is from, I'm going to mess the name up. Mr. Zibleda. He says, to the FTC, I am not anonymous, ! This is my name. I've been a car enthusiast before I could even drive. I owned enough vehicles that has become a joke that I rotate vehicles every 4 months. I even started renting out vehicles on Turo, which has me visiting dealers even more regularly. Your proposed rules are, all caps, desperately needed. In fact, I would state that they're only a beginning. Saying we need dealers to state the true price of a vehicle is mind-boggling. How we have not let this go, how we've let this go on for so long. The fact that NADA and dealers are trying to sabotage this proposal with anonymous against statements shows that this needs to be concrete and enforced by the FTC. Thank you. Now that is a credible comment, right? When you read that, you're like, that's a real person with a real story, right? And real legitimate experience with dealerships. And they articulated themselves well. If I'm the FTC people reading these comments, I'm like, we're going to weigh that one heavy. What are your thoughts? I mean, I'm open to thoughts on that.
Well,
Just
I mean, like when I read something and I see spelling errors and I see all caps with 3 exclamation points and, you know, calling out NADA and then saying they're being anonymous about it, that's kind of interesting to me. You know, I don't know who this person is, but I'm
searching them right now.
When I read that, I become very curious. You know, the first statement for me was very well approached. It says, you know, hey, look, I'm trying to provide a great experience, but if we put more and more things in place, it's going to cause a lengthened experience. And all of these guidelines are in place already, and we follow them. Like that seems, you know, that seems really strong. And I would say, you know, the problem is this is similar to probably what Jamie sees is like the people that leave bad reviews are typically anecdotal. They are based on a single or few experiences. Now, I get rotating vehicles every 4 months, but like, I mean, my response to that is probably that guy has a hard time trading in and out of cars, you know, and that's something that, and so it's going to lengthen his process. It's going to be tough for him from a pricing perspective. And it's just something like you go deeper into those sales processes and it's hard to derive exactly what's going on. So I don't know. It's tough for me. You know, I come from 12 years of being on the retail side. And so I read these with a particular bent. I get that. But I think that we can, I think that approached maybe not anonymously, I think that that's a big deal. Like if you are a dealership or work for a dealership, you probably shouldn't post anonymously because that's the fear already that we're not transparent enough as an industry. So that's the biggest thing that I see in his comment.
It's a great counterpoint. I'm researching. I mean, it's such a unique name, Bibik Zabaleta. I believe he's a firefighter in Miami-Dade, and I'm looking on Facebook right now, and I have a letter to a GM about some Chevy Equinox, talking about his dealership experience in a service department. He's actually got his email address on this. Interesting.
Let's get him on the show.
We're gonna get him on the show. That's how this works. We noticed you. Jamie, what is your perception of just when people leave comments, right? You have just in general, not about this comment in specific, but what insights can you give us about the way people leave comments, either the positive or negative? What makes them seem more credible? What makes them seem suspicious, right? You have 8 million to go on.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, that's probably a whole nother show. I mean, I think,
sure,
you know, we do see a lot of very detailed reviews, which I think is important, and we actually encourage reviewers to write more. Right? You've got to write at least 15 words. So, you know, unlike Google, where you can just do like 1 star and then nothing. If you're going to share your experience on DealerRater, we want you to share the story, because I think the story is what's important. You know, negative reviews can take all different shapes and sizes. I think, you know, largely, and again, this is not necessarily scientific, but just kind of anecdotal from what I've observed. Negative reviews tend to be a bit longer than positive reviews because they want to share the whole story from start to finish to make sure that there's context that lends credibility, instead of just walked into the showroom, had a bad experience, you know,
1 star.
Bob was not a great, salesperson, 1 star, right? That's maybe not great for Bob, generally not helpful for the dealership. It doesn't it doesn't give me as the GM or the GSM any information for how I can make things better. And so I think the best negative reviews that we get on the site are those that actually sort of, provide actionable things for dealers to do. And I will say that the sort of primary bucket of negative content, again, this sort of like zooming in even further, like just over the past 3 years, the primary bucket of negative content that we get is around poor communication. So like no calls back, long hold times, misunderstandings. In fact, over the past couple of years, we've seen a pretty sharp rise In fact, the number of reviews of constructive reviews that have been written on the site, negative, that sort of reference the fact that consumers didn't get any call back. Those have doubled over the past year, and so I think that's probably symptomatic of the supply and demand imbalance. That dealers are getting all these leads for a limited amount of cars, and they're selling it, and they're not calling the other people back. And I think as a dealer, I would sort of take note of that and take heed that like these are consumers that are walking away unhappy. That when you need these folks down the road, 9 months, year and a half later, they may not come back to you because you're just fine with the sale. And again, this is sort of my interpretation of that.
Sure.
But I think it's instructive for dealers to hear that. We're going to start to collect feedback from lead submitters on cars so we can provide that information back to dealers so they can help to train their BDC and get better in that, and ultimately use that data to kind of curate the marketplace on cars. So we're making sure that when we push people to vehicles, we are pushing them to dealers that are really good at responding in a timely fashion.
Well, let me say this. For years and years and decades and centuries and millennia, there are two things that every single relationship breaks down because of. There are two primary things.
How you put the toilet paper on the roll. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
One is finances and two is communication. And dealers are dealing in finances and a communication every single day. So if those aren't your primary ways in which you're explaining and making sure that you have great customer experiences, then shame on you. Shame on you. That comment right there got me all fired up, man. Jamie, thank you so much for being on today. I think that dealers are well served by some of the sentiment and the analysis and the understanding that you've given us. And thanks for allowing us to kind of weave you into this story and bring some analysis to the overall sentiment of the industry. It's a well-placed guidance that you've given us. So appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Kyle. Love what you guys are doing, and have a great show.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. So we could easily do a 2-hour special on
2-hour special.
I have so many comments that I want to read, but we don't have time for that. We'll probably make a post on LinkedIn. If you're not following us on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn, follow ASOTU, and hit notifications on. We're going to do a post about this and try to just continue this rally of people posting good comments for just listening. Have a few suggestions for leaving a comment here. The link is in the show notes. It'll take you to, basically takes you to the homepage of the proposal, and in the upper left-hand corner, there's a little button that says comment. You can do that. Couple things. Number one, don't be anonymous, right? That doesn't really work. Don't be anonymous. Number two, I don't see a lot of this. Talk about the great things that dealers are doing and give examples, right? I think the focus is so myopic on, like whether a product brings value or not, or some bets. We need to broaden the lens out a little bit and just talk about the good things that dealers are doing and contributing. Talk about the great overall reviews on DealerRater, right? People say this, open platform has 94% positive sentiment. 8 million reviews, right? Not 7,000 on the FTC proposal, but 8 million reviews of verified buyers that are properly moderated and open to anyone. No reviews are deleted that are negative. Dealers can't pay to adjust their ratings. Talk about that. I would say suggest amendment of the rules instead of strike them all.
Right.
Because there are good things in there, right? Because the second you're like, these all are terrible. That's going to get discounted, right? Because Kyle, like there are things in here that need to be the case.
That need to happen without a doubt. Yep. There's things that need to happen, and there's some things that are going to harm all dealers, some things that are going to let the good rise to the top, which is good, Yeah,
for sure. Finally, look, get your friends and family to leave reviews on this FTC proposal. Honestly, right? Like tell them why you're trying to do it. And if they've had good reviews, tell them to make that known. The commenting period is only 3 more days or 4 more days, whatever. It ends on September 12th, 3. So it ends on September 12th. What we want to make sure that we can do is make sure the last couple thousand comments on this are ones that really express the nature and desire of auto dealers in the automotive industry to truly serve consumers, to give them what's best, but to let them know like this is half baked, right?
Yep.
We need to fully bake this. So I know it's a little longer of an episode today, but we think there's no better reason to have a long episode. Kyle and I are about to go dive right back into ASOTUCon prep so we can make sure we're ready for you in Philly. If you're not going to be there, try to get there. Even if it's Monday night, come for the party. It's free. We'll let you in. We promise.